flexible hours, a 4-day work week, a sense of purpose. Just some of the things employees might be looking for in a job. The pandemic has upended our expectations, leading to a shortage of workers in multiple sectors. Hello and welcome to this edition of France in Focus, where we'll be looking at the labour market. Workers have been quitting their jobs more and more since the pandemic, and businesses are coming to the realisation that a pay slip isn't everything for their staff members. So, has a so-called Great Resignation or Big Quit reached France? Let's take a look now at some of the numbers behind the trend. There were nearly 20% more resignations in France in July 2021 compared to 2019. More than a quarter of work contracts were cut short over the same period, and there were more than 620,000 resignations and mutually agreed contract terminations in the third quarter of last year. The trend is being seen in all sectors. One of the hardest hit, though, is the hotel and restaurant industry due to irregular hours, difficult working conditions, and weekend shift work. About 150,000 employees in the sector have changed jobs since the beginning of the COVID crisis. That's led to 250,000 job vacancies in French cafes, hotels, and restaurants. Employers are also looking to recruit in transport and logistics. There's a need for between 40 and 50,000 extra road transport professionals. And it's a similar story in air transport. Some airlines have had to cancel flights. People are resuming air travel on a massive scale, and airports are chock-a-block. But there too, staff are sorely lacking, not least in airport security. Finally, it's no secret the health sector too suffers from chronic staff shortages. Hospitals in France have had to restrict the number of available beds and at times even restrict access to emergency wards. Now, as you just heard there is a lack of workers across several sectors here in France. The hardest hit industries are those with difficult working hours and relative low pay. The hospitality sector, for example, has been hemorrhaging staff, and it's become a real headache for business owners of the world's #1 tourist destination, especially ahead of the summer season.
High season is already well underway on the wild coast in the west of France. But many business owners worry they won't be able to cope with the influx of tourists, as there's a widespread shortage of workers. In this restaurant, most tables are booked. The owner has only managed to hire 2 seasonal employees after months of searching.
Here you go, enjoy your food. This is Harry, who is a student working with us. And this is Patrice, our senior worker, who is changing career.
But the restaurant owner still needs around 10 more workers.
I've never been in a situation like this. We are offering conditions that are more than comfortable. 2 days off in a row, even during peak time, accommodation, comfortable pay.
The staff shortage has forced him to close his other upscale restaurant for 3 lunchtimes a week.
It's heartbreaking because we want to open in order to welcome the most customers possible. But now, to have to close against our wishes, it's not easy.
In the seaside resort La Baule, many businesses can only open part-time. To draw workers to their area, the local authority is encouraging residents to rent out rooms cheaply.
It'll bring work, because there are a lot of young people who can't work because of that.
But for the moment, only a handful of property owners have agreed to take part in the scheme.
To talk to us more about the state of the French workforce, I'm joined by Professor Christine Herelle, the Chair of Labour Economics at the French National Conservatory of Arts and Crafts. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Hello.
Professor, the hospitality sector is struggling to attract workers with its difficult hours, the difficult work-life balance. What are some of the solutions to this?
I think the first solution is to increase wages So they have done this partially because they have discussed about an increase in wages at the end of last year. But I think it's not enough. They have to go further, and especially to bargain on working conditions, because as you said, it's something which is difficult in that sector, especially working hours. They have a lot of long hours, atypical hours, and this is something that most people don't want anymore, especially young people.
And do you think that the French state should make work permits to make it easier for foreigners who are interested in this field?
Yes, of course, that's a solution in the short run when there are some hiring difficulties. But then in the medium and long run, it's important to work on the working conditions in the sector.
Now, the numbers here in France show a trend, but it's not quite as spectacular as those mass resignations we've been seeing in the United States. 38 million people quit their jobs in 2021, a record 4.5 million just last March. What explains the difference?
I think in France, public policies have been targeting at stability of the workforce with some subsidies for employers to keep their employees. So that's something which is very important and has helped also maintaining the workforce. And besides, I think in France, unemployment is quite high for a long time, so it's more difficult maybe to make the choice to leave unemployment, a job when you have one.
And Professor, French authorities unraveled a generous social security net during the pandemic. But for those who did lose their jobs then, what happened to them?
It's not clear yet because it's difficult to have statistics about what's going on in the very recent months. But yes, I think for quite a lot of people who were on short-term contracts and lost their jobs, they found some other jobs because there have been a lot of hirings, especially, for instance, in the hotels and restaurants or tourism, or in the culture sector, for instance. So I think, yes, there have been people who have gone back to jobs.
The current situation is somewhat changing the power dynamic between employers and employees, the former sometimes having to go above and beyond to attract the latter. This next report takes a look at the original and sometimes unconventional solutions businesses and even the state have come up with to find workers to join their teams.
I'm offering 20, 50 euro notes. That's 1,000 euros.
1,000 euros to hire a pizza maker. The owner of this restaurant in Montpellier in southern France tried all the usual channels to employ someone, but failed.
We're looking for welcoming, passionate people. Things work from that point. The highest salary in our company is 5,000 euros a month.
Another restaurant in another southern French city, Nîmes, is offering a year of free pizza to the person who finds his next chef. It seems to work. He has about 20 profiles that could match the person he needs for his team. Catering isn't the only sector hit by staff shortages. This recruitment firm in Paris has set up a lottery to attract more candidates. People who post their CV and recommend 2 other people could win 100,000 euros. A random draw decides the winner.
It's good PR, so we can have the CVs to deal with the lack of staff.
There is a shortage too at the rectorship of Versailles, 20 kilometers west of Paris. The rectorship organised 4 days of job dating to hire teachers. The candidates were given 30-minute interviews and were quickly given a yes or a no.
It really matters to us that they decide very quickly because we have a lot of job offers. Once the motivation is there, then a quick interview and a quick response is enough.
Some people applied even though they lacked the experience needed.
I
had 4 children and took care of them. I found doing the maths course with them was interesting, and I'm nearly 50 now, so it is time to change pace.
French unions have condemned such hasty recruitment procedures. They say they undermine various professions and result in lower standards.
Now, Professor, it's not just the most physically difficult professions. Managers, too, are becoming more and more demanding about better working conditions and wanting meaning in their professions. How would you explain this phenomenon?
I think it's something that is changing with the level of qualification for us, because we have a lot of young people who have were higher educated. They've gone to university, and now so what they want from their job is really something else than just money, just their wage. They want also some meaning. That's first thing. And then for all people, I think the COVID crisis has also made people more conscious about the importance of work-life balance, and that's something that is relatively new. And we observed that already in the past, but it's growing.
And what does the state of France's current labour market mean about the types of jobs that are available? Is France creating too many low-wage, low-productivity jobs?
In a way, maybe, yes, because we have a service sector in which there are a lot of job creations, and some of them are low quality. For instance, in home care, or as we said, in hotels or restaurants. So I think, yes, we have partially that type of jobs, but not only, because in the manufacturing sector, it's quite dynamic also at the moment. But there you have very specific demands in terms of competencies, in terms of skills. And this is something which is also difficult for employers, because you have to train people, and that's something which takes time.
And finally, where do you think this resignation trend is going? Do you think this is just a phase born out of COVID, or is this the beginning of real change in our relationship with workplaces?
I think there is a change, and it's not going to go back to the previous situation. But of course, in that situation, the general economic context also matters. It's because the situation is improving, because we have growth, that workers can also claim better working conditions, etc. But if there was a change and an increase in unemployment again, then of course they would be more constrained in their choices.
Thank you so much, Christine Herel. That's it for this week's show. Thank you for watching. See you soon on France 24.